Interesting new matter of public record has been attached. Those sweet, sweet words.
So Nick announces he's doing a show Saturday. And every time Nick announces he's doing a show, MNPublicRecords drops a shitload of documents from different hearings. This one is from the Child Protective Services hearing. This is where they get to talk to all the people. I think this is from June. This court thing took place in June. You've got Alicia Sweep makes an appearance, the Child Protective Services director who I've met. Nice lady, great at her job. She's very, very solid. They have a few other people up there. The lawyers get to examine and cross-examine. The judge gets to ask some questions. And we get some interesting tidbits from MNPublicRecords. Now, I'm going to read his summary of the whole thing because trying to take these page by page,
will take forever.
It's a lot. But he kind of hits the high notes. Remember, this is a man who got arrested with an ounce of cocaine in his house, ketamine pills. April's charged with 5th-degree felony drug possession because her debit cards were covered in coke. She had a straw next to her debit cards. She had a vial, a bullet of coke on all of that. Like, she just basically kept her whole snorting kit right there. And I'm convinced, by the way, that Nick did give April a vial of cocaine while we were all hanging out, and she brought it home. And she was doing cocaine during the show. I've been watching some clips back. I had an idea back then, but bringing it up was only going to cause a massive fight. And she would do this thing. When I talk about April and Nick being the same person, they are the same manipulator. So okay. I would talk to April about, like, you can't do that shit on the show. I can't cover for you when you behave that way, or I can't cover for you if you're going off and doing coke, or if you're going to be on the show, strung out and high. It was this weird thing where she hated the internet for talking shit about her, and she had to quit the show because the internet was getting to her. But nothing the internet was saying was incorrect. So what am I supposed to do? You're behaving in a way that people observe your behavior, and then when they observe your behavior, you act like they're the bad guys. You're a broadcaster. You're putting shit out there. You're on a visual medium, and people are noticing things about you. And it's like it didn't register. She didn't have to take responsibility for anything. So I would confront her on this, and she would yell at me and scream at me, and I'm a monster. I'm a terrible guy. Then she would go to Nick, and she would tell Nick he's a monster, he's awful, he's this terrible guy because I'm confronting her about cocaine. He would just give her more cocaine and tell her how it was good, it was fine, and Aaron's a prude, and and then Nick would come to me and going, I'm helping you out, buddy. I'm just, when she comes, like, she's just really, she just gets really crazy, and she just starts, going off, and I just, I tell her it's okay that you, like, when he would say that, I'd look at him, and there were a couple times where I go, do you think I'm fucking retarded?
I mean, yes, but
I shouldn't have left the question open-ended. Well, and then, like, it's not like Kayla and I didn't do the same thing. Like, Kayla would ask me about lawyers, and Kayla would talk about what she was afraid of if she left Nick and divorced him and shit like that. Like, it got everybody.
Wow, dude.
Here's the deal. Everybody talks shit about everybody. It's just that Nick and April would lie about, well, you know what? Nick would lie about talking shit. April wouldn't. Like, April said a lot of shit about Kayla to me, and eventually she would say it to Nick, and then eventually, like, she had a lot of bad shit to say about Kayla. Kayla's ruined him, and Kayla's taken away a lot of great things from him, and I would never treat him that way, and she took that show away from him, and he loved doing that show, and she ruined it for him. I'm like, she doesn't even go down there, dude. Like, I don't know what you're talking about.
How did she ruin the show?
Well, I'm sure Nick told her that. Like, Nick and April would tell each other their warped perspective of what their partners are doing. Meanwhile, their partners are upstairs telling each other, I can't fucking deal with this person. They're gaslighting the shit out of me. They're fucking doing this, doing that. Like, it was basically, if we were all alone together, we were talking shit about each other.
Wow, you make this whole drug polycule thing sound so fun.
It's not fun. It's not a great time. We have these documents now. Let's get back to the docs. And this is the CPS hearing. And the reason I bring up April is because of the highlights that we're going to have from this hearing. We have the testimony of Alicia Sweet, that Nick flat out accused of perjury on his live stream, if you'll remember, saying she lies under oath, this Alicia Sweet lady. Let's take a look. Number one, much like when Nick reveled in thumbing his nose at his church by bringing the full cover and the later throuple to the pews. Remember, April and I had been to the church. April was at the church after I had left with all the kids.
Right.
Sure enough, all of the below transpired. All of this CPS stuff happened with April in the gallery as a support, gazing upon the cult leader in awe. Surely that would have inspired a lot of confidence in the county's eyes. Now, that's number one. Let's talk about that. They go over who's in the audience.
Right.
And you got Nick's parents. You've got the three oldest children, the ones that are over 10 years old. They're here hearing this. Remember that. And then you have April listed as a support in the gallery. He brought his fucking side chick. He brought sister wife to a fucking CPS hearing. Remember, this is the hearing where he's going to go, I'm a good boy. I'm a good boy and I can have my kids back. Give me my kids back because Nick's turned a corner. Nick's all right, even though Nick won't admit he did anything wrong in the first place. But okay. April is there at the fucking hearing.
I hope they're fucked up. Nobody's this stupid.
I hope they are fucked up beyond belief. I hope they are coked out of their minds during this hearing. I really do. Because if this is the best you can do with a sober mind, holy shit, are you fucking stupid? I mean, it's dumb enough for you all to be living together still.
Right.
It's even dumber to bring her to the fucking CPS hearing where you're trying to show you're a responsible, normal family who can have children in their home. By the way, here's my side poke that I got arrested with all the she was in the bedroom with my wife the morning we all got arrested. I'm totally ready.
I don't know why anyone thinks anything's happening between the two of us. Did they not hear how I'm aggressively monogamous?
Aggressively. And, I've been thinking about that Chrissy interview he gave. He totally knew Chrissy was a pushover. He totally knew Chrissy was not going to push back or call him on any bullshit. He aggressively took his time and aggressively decided, I'm going to throw my biggest lies out there because this woman is not going to check me. This woman is not like he wasn't that the one where he said like, oh, if you have bleach in your home, it's dangerous to kids. He put bleach and cocaine in the same realm as each other.
Well, actually, he's right there. If you have bleach in your home and you're making one of your children take it regularly, it is dangerous to your children.
You know what? You're right. In that case, it is that extra criteria
step.
there. Yeah.
I mean, he forgot that one part of the comparison.
But I don't.
Other than that, right on.
But I don't clean surfaces with cocaine. Maybe I'm the crazy one.
But have you tried before?
I haven't.
It takes the surface's ability to be dirty from here, and it brings it up here.
See, Nick always had a way of explaining things so nobody could understand them. So April's in the gallery to show support. And, dude, if you're Nick's parents, I don't know what they've been told. I'm guessing he had to just fucking snow him on this whole thing. You see,
Did he have any left? I thought the cops took it all.
You see April there. If you're Nick's parents, you're like, Nick, what the fuck is she doing here? You and your wife need to have a family again. Like, you need to be together. What the fuck? Nick's probably convinced them, oh, yeah, Aaron was like ground and pounding her, beating the fuck out of her. Aaron was this terrible guy. We're rescuing her. He doesn't believe that. He knows that's horseshit, and I'll call him on it every time. But they don't know that that's bullshit. So he's probably got them sold because, remember, these are the same parents who we're going to see later in these documents don't think that Nick's ever done cocaine.
Oh.
So these are not the most difficult people to fool.
Well, I guess we know where Nick gets his unprecedented level of stupidity from.
I will say this. If I had to rank Rekieta family parents, like the kids' grandparents, Kayla's stepdad's my favorite dude. He's great. I like that guy. Dan's awesome. Dan's a stand-up, no-nonsense guy. Then I would go Kayla's mom, then Nick's dad, Nick's mom. But I think the Rekietas are the perfect example. You know, they have this saying about rich families, shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations.
Okay.
Where somebody works really hard and builds something up.
Mm-hmm.
The next generation, they kind of live on it a little, but they're still able to kind of make their own way a little bit. And then the 3rd generation is just a complete spoiled fuck who ruins everything.
Yeah.
Nick Rekieta is the perfect example of shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. He is the walking embodiment of that saying. It's never been more perfect.
And I mean, just again, the whole thing would be a lot easier if she wasn't there. It's just one less problem. It's one less thing to deal with. It's one group of hurdles you don't have. And yeah, I don't understand why she's there at all at this point with everything that's happened. You would think, I don't want to be on the internet. I don't want to be involved with any of this stuff. Well, Kiwi Farms is on Nick like stink on a turd. So you might as well, if you don't want to be on the internet, you might as well get away from internet guy, because that's what Nick is.
Yeah. So on to highlight number 2 from these document links from MN Public Records. Although the maternal grandparents, Kayla's parents, are generally understood to have been the only caregivers, it turns out the 2 youngest children were then actually in the care of another family member and uncles giving respite for unspecified intervals. So I'm guessing one of Kayla's brothers was watching the kids from time to time. For how long and how many times did Nick's choices subject his kids to the trauma of being separated even from each other? That's another thing nobody talks about. Like when he addresses it or anything else, just like the kids have heard about this stuff. Remember, these 3 of their oldest kids are in the courtroom for all this.
Yeah, and then on top of that, they're living this shit. That's not good for them. So
it's terrible. And then also one of them obviously tested positive for a shitload of cocaine. So there's that too. But
did they test positive for bleach? I ask you.
You know what, Johnny? You got me there. They indeed did not test positive for bleach. I'm an asshole. Let's not to mention the kids being there when the cops have to battering ram the door in because their dad's a fucking douchebag who wants to cosplay libertarian hero all fucking day instead of protect his family. So that traumatic situation. Then the kids saying, "Can I have some clean clothes? I haven't changed my clothes in a few days," and holding the cop's hand as they walk out. As PP.
Oh God, that's not good.
As PPP,
that really happened.
Yeah. As PPP from Keno Casino said, the way he puts it, the kids were stinky and hungry.
Oh, well, like, dude. Okay, so I have one thing about this. I saw someone talking about this. The older kids, like, why aren't the older kids taking care of themselves?
What do you mean?
Well, you said the ages, they go up to like 15, 16, right?
16, yeah. Almost 17 now.
Yeah, 16, 17, you can't handle your shit? You can't do some laundry, fucking
well,
make your own food?
The laundry's in the bedroom.
I didn't realize the laundry machine was in the bedroom.
Yeah.
So that at least explains that. The food thing, again, a little bit of a worry, but I grew up with like completely unattentive parents, and by like 10 or 11, we kind of had it figured out that we just had to handle ourselves.
Well, now King Kong Dong says because their parents didn't teach them these skills, Johnny. That's a good point too.
Well, my parents didn't teach me skills either. I figured out how the laundry machine worked because my clothes stank. But I mean, yeah,
it kind of looks like you're giving Nick an excuse. I mean, it's kind of a weird look you're giving right now.
I'm sorry.
I mean, it is. I mean, I'm asking what you mean.
I'm just saying,
it's the 16-year-old's fault. It's the 16-year-old's fault all the kids were stinky and hungry?
No, I'm just saying if you're the 16-year-old and you've got like little siblings that are complaining about being hungry, like make them some goddamn SpaghettiOs. You know what I mean? Like,
well, no, the kids would come to the bedroom door, and anytime the kids came to the bedroom door and wanted a snack or anything else, like usually me, I would go get it for them, or somebody would. But it was most of the time almost always me, because 2 or 3 people were in the bathroom doing their thing, and
doing stuff.
Number 3, and this one broke my heart temporarily to hear. This was a tough one to hear. How do I put this? When it comes to Kayla, and maybe I'm too easy on Kayla, but Kayla can be a very sweet, loving soul. The thing with Kayla is this. When it comes to drugs and it comes to neglecting children and when it comes to getting better and turning your life around, there's a difference between wanting to and being able to. Kayla has, I can tell you this from experience, 100% fact. Kayla wants to turn it around. Kayla wants to stop all of it. Kayla feels guilt. Kayla is one of the guiltiest people I've ever met. Kayla feels terrible. Kayla does not think this stuff should be happening. The drugs, at least, and all of that. Kayla wants to do better. Kayla is not capable of doing better. I offered resources. I offered help. I offered anything I could. Kayla would always talk about wanting to do better, but when it was time to take any actual concrete steps, she would not. Every fight with Nick where she would end up hurting herself, every fight with Nick where she would come back screaming and crying that he gaslights the shit out of her and all that, never did anything. Like, you feel bad for people at some point, but then you kind of get the, the principle from American History X where you ask that question of, has anything I've done made this better?
Yeah, you've contributed enough to it. So
right. You can't feel sympathy for someone forever unless they do something about it. And she is unwilling to do something about it. She's go along to get along. When she will sit there and she will stand right in front of everyone. Her little 5'2", adorable little Kayla. She'll stand there in front of everybody. She goes, "This is wrong. This is bad." And they'll yell back at her and convince her it's her fault, and she'll fall apart again and go, "All right." There is an impulse in her to do the right things. So here we go. Number 3. I had that long setup to get to number 3. For once, there was a brief glimpse of conscience and contrition in Kayla, MNPublicRecords writes. She tearfully hugged her eldest out in the hallway and said, quote, "These are the consequences of our actions." Now, that should be a big holy shit moment. I was surprised more people didn't take that as the holy shit moment that it is, because I don't think people get it. I don't think people understand. That is the first time anyone not named Aaron has admitted any kind of guilt in this
or
whole
wrongdoing.
Thing. Or wrongdoing. And God bless Kayla Rekieta for doing that. God bless her for at least in that moment being a good mother and hugging her oldest and saying, "These are the consequences of your actions." Has Nick stopped to tell his children once, "This isn't your fault, this is my fault? I did this"?
Well, no, because he didn't do anything wrong after all. This was all a setup. It's the deep state.
Save my own fucking ass before I teach my kids a fucking lesson. Or I make my kids feel better about the situation. No, Dad's got to cover his ass. Dad's got a CYA so you kids can figure it out. Like everything else in his life, his kids can fend for himself. Nick's got to look out for number 1. And the side piece who's up in the fucking peanut gallery for support. But this is the first time we've seen her go, "These are the consequences of her actions," as she cries and hugs her children. And fuck Nick Rekieta for not supporting his wife. Not supporting his children, we know that, but not supporting his wife. I guarantee her saying that pissed him off, and they have fought about this. I know these two, and I'm telling you that pissed him off. I'm telling you they had a conversation about it, and I'm telling you it was a fight. And he yelled at her for it. Instead of him hugging his children too and going, "This is Dad's fault." That's what being a dad is. Being a dad is taking the knife wounds, taking the pain so they don't have to feel it, especially when it's not their fault. If it's their fault, it's your job to teach them the lesson that comes with that pain. But when it's not their fault, even if it's your fault shared with other people, you fucking take that. That's your fucking job. And by the way, we're talking about a 42-year-old man who needs mommy and daddy to come over and clean his house. So I know this isn't getting through. But when you're 42 years old and you have 5 kids, you should know by now that your job is to take the pain of this world, absorb it, especially when it's your responsibility, and protect them. Kayla had a maternal instinct for a moment, and she went with it. She sacrificed herself for a moment, and I'm so proud of her. I wish she would have kept going. I wish she would have continued to accept that responsibility. She'd be in a much better place right now. But she hugged her eldest child, and she said, these are the consequences of our actions. Nick didn't do that. Would have been nice if Nick would have done that.
But he doesn't want to hug his kids. He wants to go hit up that side piece. That's why he's got.
Wants to get up there in the gallery, get some support. But these are the consequences of our actions. Kayla, in one simple sentence, you said something beautiful. You nailed it. Perfect. But this
and if you said that to the judge, that might actually help.
Right. But this is where I get to, Johnny. Want to versus able to. Kayla wants to take responsibility. Kayla wants to cleanse her soul of what she's done wrong. And she wants to get on the path to living a better life. But the minute she is with him and the minute he is with her, they are destructive. And then you throw another destructive narcissist in April into the picture. The opposite narcissist of Nick, whereas she's always, victimhood is her narcissism, whereas Nick's is, delusions of grandeur are his narcissism. You take those two and put them with Kayla, and they both kind of confront her, and that want to do the right thing does not turn into the ability to do the right thing. She just falls right back in line and gives up. I've seen it.
She's going to have to get out of that situation then.
Well, isn't that the
only
catch?
That's the only change you can make. If you can't, I've always said, when a situation becomes untenable, something needs to change. And so you just go down the list of changes that you prefer until you get to one that you can actually do. And I think in this case, the one she can actually do that'll work would probably be getting out of there. Don't be there.
Again, that goes back to want versus ability. That's the tragic catch-22 of this whole situation. These are the consequences of our actions. MNPublicRecords says, will Nick ever acknowledge the same? No. Doesn't have the ability. For him to admit he's wrong, for him to admit he's fallible, it destroys a big part of who he is. He doesn't have the bravery to look into that kind of mirror and be that self-reflective and make that call. Nick does not. It's not in his personality. It's not in his makeup. He doesn't have that gene. He will go down with his ship. Number 4, on a lighter note. Ooh, you ready for some levity?
Yeah, lighter note. What's good? What's lighter?
What's good? On a lighter note, we finally get the comical details about the May 28th first site visit's refusal of access to the master bedroom. Remember, Nick called Alicia Sweep a liar. When Alicia Sweep said, I went through there, I got to the master bedroom, he shut the door on me and wouldn't let me in. Okay, Nick. Nick, okay. Okay, Nick, okay. Allegedly, Nick shut the door in Sweep's face saying, you don't need to come in here. And you know what I love about this? I can see Nick doing this. This is, thinks he looks like a tough guy Nick. I can see, thinks he's a tough guy Nick face. I can hear, thinks he's a tough guy, stern voice. Nick is one of those people where he wants to be, maybe not feared, but he wants that respect of aggression. I think he's intimidated Kayla for years. I think he's probably been able to intimidate April, but he can't intimidate. So he's used to being able to be authoritative with women or smaller people. But anyone who knows anything, basically dudes, or Alicia Sweep, who in her own right is kind of a badass. I've met Alicia Sweep. She's no nonsense. She's the real deal. She's very good at her job. People like that can see right through Nick's horseshit. So allegedly, Nick shut the door in Sweep's face and said, you do not need to come in here, because he was only going in there briefly to grab whatever shitty art piece would surely explain away the loose bullets found near his firearm. What or who was in there in that room that he had to hide? Well, I would argue drugs. I would argue that they reloaded, but I could be wrong. But yeah, so what Nick tried to do. So you know how the police found that .22 caliber bullet?
Yeah, the loose bullet casing thing.
Yeah, and people were theorizing that like he was coked out and he was like shooting at varmints. Like
so he's just Yosemite Samming around his house?
Yeah, basically they thought he was out shooting. And I was the first one to go, guys, I've never seen, he's not shooting guns in the house. I promise you. I don't know where that came from, but you know, it's not, he's not firing guns in his house. He's not like fucking Tommy Lee Jones and Cobb, you know, shooting a deer out the window with a handgun. He's not doing that. But apparently it fell out of a painting. The bullet was in a painting and it fell out. Why Nick needed to show the CPS person that, I have no fucking idea. Like, I don't know if that's part of, again, Nick's need to control the narrative, Nick's need to control appearances. But I think if you showed Alicia Sweep that picture, she would go, I don't fucking care. That's not what I'm here for. I'm not here to look at your art to see that there's a bullet thing missing. And then I'm not here to do fucking forensics, dude.
And by the way, for someone who's investigating you, if you don't want her to look somewhere, best way to do this is go, no, you can't come in here. No, stay on the other side of the door.
Look, yes, you're right, Johnny. It instills a lot of confidence when someone's there to inspect your house to see if there's drugs or if it's an okay place for children, and you go, oh, you can't go in there. Okay, so number 5. So that was just some silly shit, you know.
Okay.
He kept Alicia Sweep out of the bedroom because, well, you know, you need energy to clean. Number 5, an added excuse for refusing access to the master bedroom during the May 28th site visit was that the Rekietas were, quote, on their way to post bond between that 1 p.m. site visit and the CHIPS hearing later that afternoon. Why such a hurry to post unconditional bond ASAP when they had already been conditionally released? Now, remember, got to go back to the arrest. They were released under their own recognizance, but they had to drug test.
Right.
They couldn't do any drugs. They couldn't do anything like that, and they had to be regularly tested. They didn't want to do that. So they each paid $5,000 to a bail bondsman, so $10,000 total, so they wouldn't have to test. Because, in my opinion, they want to do fucking drugs. That would hurt their criminal case. So they were in a hurry to post bond because at that CHIPS hearing, in my opinion, I could be wrong, at that CHIPS hearing, they were going to release Nick and Kayla's hair follicle drug test.
Okay.
And it was going to show, and I can say this is fact, 100% fact, because I've watched it with my own eyes. I was there.
It's documented, it's proven.
It's documented, it's proven. They were going to release those hair follicle tests, and it was those follicles were going to be fucking loaded with cocaine. You thought the amount that his daughter tested positive for. I am dying to see.
You know how much he came across
I
with?
need to know because I've watched the man do cocaine. I've watched the man consume coke. I wouldn't be surprised if he tested positive for an amount that would make a doctor look at it and go, this is life-threatening. Like, your heart could stop.
This is just too much coke, sir.
This is a shitload of blow. Like, he would come up during his show. And remember, this was a guy that was driving his kids to school at 7 a.m. He would drink all night during his show. He would come up during breaks in his show and do cocaine. And I know that many times, a lot of times, before April and I left at 4 a.m. to come here and do the show, April was doing coke to wake herself up so she could come do the show. Was Nick doing it at 4 a.m? I don't know. I don't remember. But was he doing it while he was driving the kids around?
Probably.
I would be shocked if Nick never did cocaine in between driving his kids around. This is one where I have to be careful. Do I remember specific times where he went? I remember specific times where in between driving the kids places, he went back into that bathroom. Yes. Did I ever see him? You got to remember, I was here doing the show when he was doing a lot of his driving, so I don't
know what was going on.
But there were times where he was driving the kids around and I would be there, and yeah, I saw him go into the bathroom. Don't know what he did, though. Not sure in that case. But I wouldn't be surprised if he had done drugs, if he had done cocaine and then drove the kids around.
Because you feel it's safe enough.
April did coke and drove.
Right, but if you feel it's safe enough to, self-medicate your daughter, I feel like you pretty much feel like, oh, I know this, I can do anything.
Yeah.
Like I'm an expert.
Number 6, again, Nick can't resist the chance to hear the sound of his own voice despite his own attorney sitting there who is supposed to do the talking. Yeah, now as we get into the hearing stuff, Jesus fucking Christ with this guy. You know how the internet says I'm a fucking retard who doesn't know how to lawyer? Well, we only say that because you can't wake up for traffic court. But he's going to get in there and he's going to show his lawyer. This is why I don't see him taking a plea deal. This motherfucker constantly thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. Motherfucker, if I was in the room, you weren't the smartest guy in the room, and I'm an idiot. You're a dumb guy. You're a fucking dumb guy who mommy and daddy never told you no. Mommy and daddy always told you were special, and now at 42, we're seeing how the rotten fruit falls from the tree. Because now,
if
now
you
you
were the
think
smartest
you're
guy in the
lawyer.
room, we wouldn't be here, sir.
Yeah, that's a great point. If you were the smartest guy in the room, you wouldn't be here. You know who the smartest person in the room was that day? Kayla. Because at least Kayla went to the oldest and said, these are the consequences of our actions. Kayla was smarter than you on this day. So the lawyer is there, this time taking a simple question of whether the parents have, quote, been cooperating with drug testing as his time to belt out objection. The fucking client yelled out objection. Represent yourself if you want to represent yourself, but don't have a lawyer there and yell out objection. Why his lawyer didn't hit him with a phone book at that moment, I have no idea. So he yells out objection to whether or not the parents have been cooperating with drug testing.
What are you going to object about this?
That's the question.
You're trying to get your kids back. Objection. This will make me look really bad. We can't do this.
It's devastating to my case. Objection to the introduction of the drug test evidence that wasn't even the call of the question. So he objected to the drug test evidence being released when that's not even what they were doing. They were asking, you've been taking drug tests? That's a yes or no. So objection to the introduction of the drug test evidence that wasn't even the call of the question. As if panicking at the thought of ever discussing the parents' own hair follicle tests on May 30th, for which they'd swiftly revoked consent to release results to any county officials, and which their later July 13th motion sought to suppress altogether for the sole reason that the guardian ad litem, the advocate for the kids, shouldn't have gotten her hands on the results. This time, the different judge was having none of it and asked Nick's attorney whether she'd like to make an objection for him. So Nick goes, they just ask if he'd been taking tests. And Nick, in an effort to look totally innocent, goes, no, you can't use our hair follicle test. Objection. No. The judge doesn't even address him. What the judge should have said is, hey, fuckhead, that's not the question. That's not what we're asking, you dipshit. But instead, what the judge does is like basically no-sells Nick and goes, counsel, would you like to object? And the lawyer's probably just looking at him and looking at the judge and going, why am I even fucking here? Number 7, leaving aside the parents' May 30th hair follicle test. God, like a lot of people want to see the body cam footage, of the arrest, which I don't really need.
You want the follicle test.
Right.
Well, you don't need to. You know what's on that footage. Yeah. You've been there.
I know what that house looks like. I think the last time I was there was a couple weeks after I was done because Kayla had me come over for a second and then we went out. That was the funniest, man. When, because Kayla wanted to still, have a connection after I left. I go there and I'm waiting for Kayla and Nick comes home and Nick walks by me and he goes, hey, and I go, it was just, I hate you, go fuck yourself. I hate you too, go fuck yourself. Now,
while I wait for your wife.
Yes. I'm going to lift your wife up and press her against your truck and make out with her aggressively for a while. Number 7, leaving aside the parents' May 30th follicle test with the result that they've aggressively tried to bury ever since. Sure enough, their first urine results were handed to the state at the last minute in the hallway before the hearing. So, remember, cocaine stays in urine for what, 24 to 48 hours?
I don't know.
Stay in urine. 1 to 2 days, so about 24 hours. Cocaine stays in your urine. So all you got to do is not do coke for 24 hours and you can piss clean, right?
Yep.
And if you're trying to get your kids back, you're stopping everything, right? Like, you're done with every
Should be.
intoxicant, every bad thing.
He threw out all the booze. I thought we were done. Clean living.
Say that again, Johnny.
He threw out all the booze.
And
he
now
said he got rid of all the booze. Got rid of everything.
He said that when? How soon after getting out of jail did he say he threw away all the booze?
I think like his first stream that he came back on.
First stream back. He said, I got rid of the booze. It's out of the house. His first urine tests were handed to the state at the last minute in the hallway, which even then still tested positive for alcohol almost 2 weeks after the arrest. So this motherfucker is still boozing, still drinking it up. Alcohol can be detected in urine 3 to 5 days via the ethyl glyceride test, or 10 to 12 hours via the traditional method. Well, this was the traditional method. So if he's got alcohol in his urine, and this is, say, 2 p.m, that means at the earliest he was drinking at 2 a.m, but more likely he was drinking in the morning and the afternoon.
I don't know why you would, again, I don't know why you would keep telling everybody you got rid of all the booze and all the stuff if it's there. Like, these tests are not going to hide it because you insist you're not doing it.
Right. Number 8. Again, Candy-Ojai County Health and Human Services insisted that the agency still continue to supervise visits because both sets of grandparents have lived whatever incredibly sheltered existence it would be to, quote, be unfamiliar with what somebody under the influence looks like. So the grandparents who are watching the kids say, you know, hey, can we just bring them over and, you know, everybody hangs out and the kids are fine. And the county's like, no. Like, why? Well, do you know how to tell when someone's fucked up? And the grandparents are like, no. And I feel like what they should have said was, have you ever watched one of Nick's streams? Show them the one that got Nick arrested. That's what someone being fucked up looks like. And more oddly, because at least Nick's parents still did, quote, these are Nick's parents, unlike Kayla's. Remember, Kayla's family helped get them arrested.
Right.
Kayla's family was like, this is fucked up. These guys are not okay. Somebody needs to stop. Right. And I know Dan. Dan's a no-nonsense kind of dude. Like I said, Dan's my favorite. Kayla's stepdad is a fucking good dude. And he would not put up with that kind of shit. I can't imagine how he's handling this. Because this is something unfathomable to a guy like him. So I hope he's doing okay.
Well, then, no offense though, but has he not? How much of a relationship has he had then? Because like you haven't noticed this stuff going on around them, or?
Well, I mean, I only saw them like I'd go over to their. We were over at their house once. We'd go out for dinner. We'd see them at the children's events and things like that. And I would always I'd talk fucking Vikings. You know, saw him at church that one time. I'd talk Vikings with Dan and shit like that. We'd sit and talk forever. I love that guy. He's great.
Right.
But he at least, you know, he and Kayla's mom and sister and everyone else were like, this is fucked up. You know? But Nick's parents, so again, shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations, not holding little baby Nick accountable for anything, never teaching little baby Nick any lessons. Nick's 42 years old. I stood there at the door while his dad goes, do your fucking taxes. I think he came up to watch the kids so Nick wouldn't have an excuse as to why he doesn't get his taxes
Wouldn't do
done.
his taxes.
Because remember, Nick's excuse for everything. You know, he yells at that cop with the speeding ticket. I'm running the kids around all the time. Motherfucker, you don't have a job. You're not stressed out because you're running the kids around. I've made the kids run 2 different days. It was not hard. It's not difficult to make the kids run for the Rekieta family, especially when you have no job.
Yeah.
And mom doesn't have a job. You can make those runs. He was stressed because he was fucking blitzed on coke all the time. Nick's parents, quote, do not believe that Mr. and Mrs. Rekieta used any type of substance in the first place, such that some sort of facilitator would need to babysit both sets of grandparents through use recognition education, brushing up on what you or I might call basic common sense. So Nick's parents don't even think that there needs to be someone to be educating them, because they don't, their baby boy and their precious Nick and precious boy would never do drugs.
You would never do something so wrong. Our boy is a straight-laced guy.
I wonder what the fuck he told them about those 26 grams of coke.
I mean, I don't know, man. Like, my parents are fuck-ups, but if the cops bust me with 26 grams of coke, there's no telling them that I don't do drugs. No, they don't bust you with 26 grams because you're clean. So, yeah, I feel like just the size alone, really, you can't be like, oh, no, our son doesn't do drugs, really? So what, was he a mule? El Chapo of the area, or what?
What is this? And I could look Nick's parents right in the eye, and I could just look at him and go, you're wrong. Aaron, how do you know that they do it? I've literally been there. I've watched them. I've seen it with my own eyes. Your kid, not only does your little baby boy do cocaine, he positively loves the shit. I want to tap his dad. I want to backhand his dad on the shoulder and be like, fucking listen to this shit. Nick, do the stress thing. Do the stress thing.
Explain how it works.
Bob, fucking watch this. It's like a fucking monkey. Go ahead. Tell him about the stress. Well, you see your stress level goes like, Bob, can you fucking believe this shit? You don't think he's fucked up? Come on. Celeste, come on. Listen to him. Did you hear the stress thing? Either he's on coke or you raised a retard. Both are possible. Talk amongst yourselves. Number 9. Another testament to Nick's Herculean work ethic can be found in the fact that he, Kayla, and the live-in nanny must not have been enough to clean the disgusting house so hard to walk around without stepping on clothing, bedding, and blankets on their own, because it turns out this is embarrassing.
This is in the CPS report, by the way.
This is in the CPS hearing. This is in court.
Oh, it's in the hearing.
Yeah. This house was fucking disgusting. The carpets, like I said, the carpets are stained and blackened. They need to be ripped up and replaced in the entire house, especially in the basement. Just full of garbage, wrappers, old papers, just shit, broken toys. Just shit. And then the upstairs is nothing but dirty clothes, and then nothing but clean clothes in the living room. Yeah, there's nowhere to sit down. The kitchen island was a fucking disaster. The kitchen table, I would always clean that kitchen table, and a couple weeks later, if I didn't stay on top of it, was fucking cluttered again. Sink just full of dishes, whiskey glass. Oh my God, that was the number one thing, dude. Every time I did dishes, that whole top row of the dishwasher was just whiskey glasses. Because April and Nick could not stop their fucking drinking. Holy shit. So anyway, I would almost say the alcoholism was as bad as the coke. Like right. they were as bad with booze as they were with cocaine. But the house was in disastrous condition. Like, take the worst house you've ever seen. It's probably around there. It turns out that the poor grandparents had to do much, if not all of the cleaning for them. 42 years old and a 40-year-old stay-at-home mother and a 29-year-old poke toy, fuck toy nanny. I mean, honestly.
And you guys needed the grandparents to do the laundry.
You're 42 years old and mommy and daddy, let's let this sink in. Mommy and daddy had to come clean your house for you. And your parents don't think you were on coke? Your parents don't think you did drugs?
Then they must not think very highly of you, because if they walk into that shit show, they got to be like, oh, no, this is just regular behavior.
Right.
My son's a complete failure. This could totally happen.
I'd almost rather my parents think I was on coke if they walked in and saw that house.
Right.
I don't want
there's a reason.
Right. So mommy and daddy, just like everything else in Nick's life. Remember, this is a guy who was, in terms of his own work, in terms of what he had earned, broke as a joke until he was almost 40. And then found a horseshoe up his ass called Rittenhouse and Depp. And then squandered all of that, which is amazing. If I had been born into the situation Nick had born into, I'd be a nationally syndicated radio host right now. I'd be one of the biggest names in the broadcasting business.
Okay.
If Nick had been born into the situation I was born into, he'd be living in a meth trap house right now. Nick has no ability to do anything on his own. as evidence, at 42 years old, Johnny, who came and cleaned the house?
The grandparents did.
No. Give it the respect it deserves.
The grandparents did.
No. Who cleaned the house? Not grandparents. Say the words like they should for a baby boy who needs to be taken care of.
Mommy and Daddy came and cleaned the house.
Mommy and Daddy came to clean the 42-year-old man's house. Not just Mommy and Daddy coming to clean the 42-year-old man's house, but 42-year-old man who has just been arrested, charged with multiple felonies, cocaine all over his house, lost his 5 children, and needs desperately to get them back. He can't put the bottle down. He can't clean his house. And who knows if he's doing coke or not. But Mommy and Daddy are going to come bail him out. Bob, Celeste, quit it. Knock it off.
It's really helping. Doing all this picking up after your son at this point in his age. He's really getting his shit together.
You guys are really teaching him good lessons. You know, when April and I first hung out there, this is before any sex stuff. When April and I first started hanging out there, we looked at that basement and we were disgusted. And this is the difference between April before drugs and April after drugs. Because April before drugs, her and I had a plan to clean the Rekieta home and get them to help us clean the Rekieta home because it was disgusting. When April and I went there, we were disgusted by their house and disgusted by their inability to keep a home. But as soon as April started doing booger sugar, she stopped giving a fuck about what that house looked like. There was one day I remember that we were doing laundry. And it was April and I trying to get Nick to do laundry. Kayla was running the kids around somewhere. And we got a few loads of laundry in. And that's as far as it went. No laundry ever after that. I mean, we didn't put a dent in the fucking thing. But I remember being down there with Kayla and April. Nick wouldn't come down. And I was teaching them how to clean their fucking basement. I go, Kayla, break this room down into grids. Because she's like, look, it's such a big mess. There's so much shit. And I told her, I said, break the room into grids. Break it into squares and clean each.
Do one part and then move to another part.
Make that square clean and then move to the next square. And I probably got 2 or 3 squares on the grid clean. And I go, you see how that works? She goes, yeah, we can do that. And then once my wife got drugs in her, man, she didn't give a fuck about cleaning that house anymore. So then Mommy and Daddy had to come in and clean the house only after they got arrested. They would have never cleaned that house. Ever.
Right. Even under all this court stuff, they would have never gotten it done?
Never. And even then, there was a noted failure to remove any residual exposure to cocaine by wiping every surface down with bleach. Which, I mean, if you live in a trap house and you've got to clean it up, you have to bleach all the surfaces because you don't know what's on there.
Right.
I mean, if he's willing to do a line of coke off of my kitchen counter after I told him not to, he's more than willing to do it off his own.
And at this point, I just would think, after what we've heard, bleach the entire fucking house. Whether there's drug substances or not, just clean that motherfucker, bleach that shit.
Well, remember, Nick can't have bleach in his house. It's incredibly dangerous for the children.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want them to be taking it on a weekly basis.
Right. That'd be fucking irresponsible as parents. Now, when it came down to selecting the appropriate cleaning protocol, the Rekietas refused to even so much as discuss what substance was there and don't necessarily believe that it was even in their home.
So the cops planted 26 grams. Like, I mean,
they didn't even want to discuss. They wouldn't even acknowledge that cocaine was even there. So the CPS people are trying to say, did you clean all the cocaine off these surfaces with bleach? And they fucking had the balls to go, what cocaine? So they are riding we didn't have cocaine in our house all the way to what? Trial? Do you go to trial, you're going to prison.
Yeah, if you're going to refuse this that hard, it's going to be pretty difficult to prove the evidence wrong when we get to, because I imagine at the court case, they can do the body cam footage. They can, again, show the evidence.
Right.
Do they have the little safe or whatever that it was kept in? Like, look, this is where he kept it. This is what it was in.
Oh, yeah, they've got everything.
They've got it all.
They've got it all. They've got the whole thing. So they won't even acknowledge it was in their house. All right, we got 2 more of these. Number 10, as reiterated in later case plans, Sweep elaborates on Health and Human Services safety meeting attempt to plan around drug use, having been hampered by the parents having stated they do not want to answer any questions regarding that. So she's trying to say, if we're going to bring your kids back, we got to talk about drug use and we got to talk about the consequences of that and all that. And they're like, we're not talking about that because we don't do drugs.
Oh, boy, that'll really, really help you get those kids back.
And Health and Human Services, having been unable to do any safety planning around the children returning because they had not been able to establish sobriety or establish how these substances were found and got into the home in the first place. Now, Nick's been saying the kids are coming home. You know, he's using it. He's trying to own the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Best case, the kids aren't coming home. What's going to start happening is, maybe after August 12th, is that the kids will be allowed to be brought to the house for supervision.
Yeah.
That is not the same as the kids are coming. The kids are coming home, Mr. Technicality, shitty lawyer guy. We all speak the commonality of language. We know what that means is that your children now live with you full-time all the time. That's what the kids are coming home means.
The kids are coming by for a visit with the state. A little bit different.
Little different. Number 11, and this is the last one. As reiterated in the July 13th motion, the defense seemed to have given up on outright reunification and pushed instead for having the grandparents move into the Rekieta's home, which Health and Human Services also found unacceptable, in part because foster care in the home from which the children were removed and would be ineligible for foster parent licensure. And moreover, because of hampered safety planning around Mr. and Mrs. Rekieta's access to that home. And lack of a plan of how their access to the home would be restricted, even if they were to move to the second residence. Well, Mom and Grandma and Grandpa can't move to the other residence.
April's living there.
April's living there. For goodness
Unless, of course,
sake.
Grandpa wants to start hitting the side piece, too, I guess. I mean,
it's a family thing. It's a family thing. And have not yet, the second house has not yet been inspected to see if it would be safe. And that was so close as to let the parents have access to the children unsupervised. What were these pesky county prudes so afraid of? Now, the best part about this is MNPublicRecords did not release the full hearing. So the next time Nick streams,
we get the rest of the hearing.
We get the rest of it. We get to hear the whole thing. This is madness.
You know what'll really make the state think I've turned everything around? If I'm still hanging out with the same lady I shouldn't have been hanging out with before.
That I got arrested with. And we all have felony charges. We all have matching felony charges. We got matching bracelets, tattoos, and felony charges. Go us. Kicking ass and taking names over here. Woo. I don't know. I just I can't wait to see what's next.
Well, I mean, we're getting close. The 12th is the court date?
21st.
21st. Then what's August 12th? You said something about August 12th.
I think that was supposed to be when they make a ruling on the kids coming back. I thought. I could be wrong about that.